you, Nadia. Hello, everyone. Can you see my slide? Yes. Okay. So I would like my presentation of today to be an extension of last week's presentation, in which I spoke about upgrading the teaching material to meet the two requirements of internationalization. And I remember that my last slide was about making the teaching material a tool to develop local students' global citizenry skills. And here we are. My presentation of today will be the practical side of last week's presentation, developing local students' global citizenry skills through authentic cultural material. But before that, there are some questions to be raised. The first one is the effects of localizing local students' teaching, the effects of westernizing local students' teaching, and the third one, how can we develop local students' global citizenry skills through authentic cultural material, and what type of authentic cultural material are we going to use? Now, I would like to begin with this picture. What attracts me most, apart from the smiling faces of these young students, is their choice of using and wearing traditional outfits, namely the shashia and the burnous, in a global event, which is the ceremony of graduation. I think they wanted us to understand their message, which is we can be global citizens and keep our local specificity at the same time. So we don't have to think of local and global as opposites. Like Socrates, the father of globalization, said. Socrates said, "I am not Athenian or Greek, I'm a citizen of the world." And I don't agree with Socrates at all, because he thinks, or he thought, that his local identity may hinder him from being a real global citizen. So I wanted to give Socrates another chance to change his mind, and I imagined that maybe he is alive again, and the modern Socrates should have a Facebook account. And this is what he has just posted. "I'm a citizen of Athens, of Greece, and of the world." So here there is the acknowledgement of the local identity and the belonging to a global citizenry. So as I said before, I'm going to speak about the effects of localizing local students' teaching, and my first example comes from Saudi Arabia. Now, some illustrations like liberated women or driving women or wine or pigs are somehow censored or overlooked in teaching material or the teaching practice in general. So here we are pretty much speaking about halal teaching or halal education, avoiding taboos, and therefore this will lead learners to feel threatened of other cultures and or they are afraid of getting into contact with people from other cultures. My second example comes from Pakistan. So these two books are written by British and American people, but the context of illustration is the local students' culture. So apart from this gap between the foreign culture of the authors and the local culture of the students, there is also another challenging thing, which is the bad representation of the local students' culture. So right from the covers, you can see a lot of poverty, and inside the textbooks, there are a lot of stereotypes. And this will lead learners to feel not satisfied with their cultural representation, and they will dislike the learning material. And in extreme cases, they will have low self-esteem. Now, I'm going to speak about the other way around, westernizing the teaching material of the local students. And the best example here is the Tunisian one, because we are still stuck in the same situation like this car. We still teach British and American norms to local students. We still teach culture and do's and don'ts, which will generate stereotypes. And we endeavor as teachers to make our students like parrots. It means imitating native speaker accent, which is futile because the native speaker has died. And English is no longer the property of British and American people. And the proof is that the audience of today is mainly non-native speaker of English. So The alternative is the birth of the intercultural speaker. The intercultural speaker can speak many languages. He is open to other cultures. He respects or she respects other cultural heritages and has developed the global citizenry skills. And apart from that, the intercultural speaker is allowed to retain his or her social, linguistic, and cultural baggage and isn't required to imitate the native speaker. So we are no longer parrots and leave behind that which makes him or her unique. So our uniqueness is an asset, is an enrichment to our internationalization. Now I'm going to speak about global citizenry skills very briefly. These are 4 areas: culture, environmental integrity, human rights, and rights, roles, and responsibilities. But I'm going to focus on this huge area, which is culture. Under culture, we have diversity, multiple perspectives, communication, beliefs, values, behaviors, systems of knowledge. And I think this is the basis for all other global citizenry skills. Because if you don't believe in diversity or multiple perspectives, you'll never have respect for human rights or be engaged in rights and roles, responsibilities, etc. Now, many researchers try to study methods and tools to enhance global citizenry skills, and namely drama, role plays, etc. But what unites these materials is that they are authentic cultural materials. But what makes these cultural materials authentic? In other words, what is an authentic cultural material? According to Fang and Biram 2002, authentic materials at the intercultural level would not only include those texts produced by native speakers as traditionally defined, but also those written or spoken by people who use the language as a lingua franca in a pursuit of a communicative outcome. Now, I underlined the word lingua franca because it summarizes everything. We use a lingua franca like English and Spanish to speak about our identity, our cultures, our own needs and purposes. So it's all right to integrate any expression from our language or any cultural element or product from our own culture. And multicultural literature is one type of these authentic cultural material. Now, the challenging thing is that I try to use multicultural literature with my business students. It's very challenging because business English is known for its rigidity. We teach business jargon, business expressions, statistics, etc. And the other thing which is very challenging is the reluctance of business students to read literature, let alone multicultural literature. So I can give you an anecdote. Once I entered the classroom and I asked my students, have you ever read literature? And one of the students raised her hand proudly and said, yes, I read Cinderella. And I was shocked. So the teaching material, multicultural literature is challenging, especially when you want to integrate it into business English. So the solution is short stories. I used multicultural short stories of 9 to 10 pages with my students. And these are the short stories: Everyday Use of Alice Walker. She's an Afro-American, and Interpreter of Maltese by John Palahiri, and she's American Indian. And I strongly recommend you to read these short stories because they are really inspiring. So what I did is that I tried to divide my students into groups, and those who read Everyday Use didn't read Interpreter of Maltese, but they were informed by their colleagues. So here we are pretty much in the flipped classroom in which the teacher ceases to be the sole source of information. He's only a facilitator, and the students are the real teachers, and of course responsible for their own learning. And on top of that, I used the inquiry-based learning, IBL. So I gave them lists of questions grouped into themes of the intercultural competence, which are knowledge, attitudes, and skills. And these questions oriented them into making and delivering their presentations. And each week, we had 2 to 3 presentations. And the first theme was knowledge about one's and other cultures. And as you know, in intercultural communication, when you enter into communication with other people from other cultures, you'll directly notice your own culture. And the second theme was skills of interpreting and relating. They compared cultural elements and products in these short stories to their own cultural elements and products. And skills of discovery and interaction, they discovered the interaction systems and communication styles in the short stories, and of course, compared them to their own interaction systems. And the third theme was about attitudes of openness and respect to other cultures, and the students discussed the benefits of having open attitudes to other cultures and the dangers of having negative attitudes to other cultures, of course, on their global citizenry skills too. And these three elements are the major components of the intercultural communicative competence of BIRAM 1997, which is the basis for all other skills or global citizenry skills. Now, my conclusion is that I want to reflect on this picture. Now, this is a keyhole in which the lady is standing there and appreciating the open space in the other world. This is exactly what authentic cultural material does for our local students. Using authentic cultural materials such as multicultural literature widens the vision of local learners to other cultures in order to face the challenges of a globalized world. Now, in order to face the challenges of a globalized world, we have to empower our students with global citizenry skills. Now, I would like to finish with this beautiful picture. And what makes it even more beautiful is this combination of the global and the local. And thank you very much for your attention. شكرا جزيلا in Arabic.
Thank you for this presentation.